Welcome to a dark journey through ancient history. Today, a mighty empire's fate hangs in the balance. How does a kingdom built on sacred promises shatter? It takes one foolish and very arrogant choice. After Solomon's glorious reign, his son gained a throne resting on the broken backs of tired and weary men. The northern tribes begged for mercy and relief from their burdens. Sadly, they received a cruel, brutal threat. Today we witness the tragic moment when Israel split. A dark tale of deep pride and open rebellion. Solomon built a breathtaking city, filled with pure gold. However, his massive wealth carried a hidden price. The grand temples and palaces were not built by magic. They were raised by the heavy sweat of forced labor. Thousands of men were drafted from the northern tribes. They worked under the scorching sun until they collapsed. The heavy yoke of the king crushed their fragile spirits. The vast wealth of Jerusalem meant their poverty. When Solomon passed, a wave of relief swept the land. The oppressed people hoped for a much brighter dawn. The crown now passed to his young son, named Rehoboam. He grew up surrounded by endless wealth and comfort. The king traveled to the dusty city of Shechem. There, the northern leaders gathered to test his mercy. Leading the crowd was Jeroboam, a strong and rugged man. He knew the suffering of the working people. Standing before the tent, Jeroboam raised his voice. He spoke not with hatred, but with a desperate plea. "Your father made our yoke too heavy to bear," he declared. "Lighten this cruel burden, and we will serve you well." The dusty square went silent, waiting for an answer. All eyes stared at the young king in his purple robes. Rehoboam looked at their rough hands and sun-baked faces. He felt nothing but a deep sense of entitlement. He knew this restless crowd could easily turn violent. He needed time to craft a very careful response. "Go away for 3 days, and then return," he commanded. The tense crowd slowly dispersed into the hot wind. Back in the palace shadows, a heavy silence fell. The future of the entire kingdom hung by a thread. The king called upon the wise elders who served his father. These men had seen the rise and fall of many wars. "How do you advise me to answer these people?" he asked. The elders exchanged cautious and worried looks. One elder stepped forward, leaning on his wooden staff. His voice was trembling, but filled with profound wisdom. "If you serve these people today and speak kind words to them, they will truly serve you forever." It was a brilliant strategy of humble leadership. One concession could buy a lifetime of loyalty. Rehoboam hated the idea of serving commoners. His fragile ego demanded absolute power. He turned away from the elders and their cautious wisdom. He sought the counsel of his younger companions. These young nobles had never lifted a stone in their lives. They only knew how to spend the kingdom's gold. Clothed in silk, they laughed at the poor people's demands. They believed fear was the only way to rule a land. "These peasants test your authority," they whispered. "You must show them you are stronger than your father." Their toxic words fed the dark arrogance in the king's heart. He smiled, imagining the terror in their eyes. The young advisors crafted a brutal and mocking reply. It was meant to crush any hope of rebellion. "Tell them your little finger is thicker than your father's," they urged. "Promise them a reign of endless pain." For 3 days, the tension in the northern camps steadily grew. Families prayed for a merciful new king. Jeroboam paced quietly beneath the ancient olive trees. He prepared his heart for the very worst outcomes. On the 3rd morning, the sun rose over the mountains. A massive crowd gathered at the city square. The air was thick with dust and heavy anxiety. Thousands of tired men stood shoulder to shoulder. Trumpets echoed loudly from the high balcony. The heavy wooden doors creaked open to the gathered crowd. Rehoboam stepped out, wearing a massive golden crown. His face showed no pity, only a cold, cruel glare. The elders watched from the shadows, holding their breath. They knew a single wrong word could spark a tragic war. Jeroboam stepped forward, representing the desperate tribes. "We returned, my lord, to hear your final word." The young king gripped the stone railing of the balcony. He puffed out his chest and spoke with a booming voice. "My father made your yoke heavy, but I will make it worse." His words struck the weary crowd like a thunderbolt. A gasp of horror rippled through the vast sea of people. The arrogant king was not finished with his threat. "My father disciplined you with whips," he loudly shouted. "I will discipline you with scorpions of iron." For a moment, the entire square was completely silent. The cruelty of his words hung heavy in the air. The hope of a peaceful resolution shattered to pieces. The king had chosen the path of dark destruction. A low rumble began to rise from the back of the crowd. It grew into a deafening roar of utter fury. "What share do we have in David?" a strong voice cried out. "What part do we have in the young son of Jesse?" The cry of rebellion echoed across the broken land. "To your tents, Israel! Look after your own house, David!" Instantly, the gathering turned into a furious mob. Men raised their staffs and iron tools in a blind rage. The royal guards drew their bronze swords, forming a tight wall. They pushed back the surging wave of angry men. Dust filled the air as the crowd surged toward the palace. The king's smile vanished in absolute terror. He realized power is not built on fear alone. His young advisors cowered behind him, trembling with dread. Rehoboam scrambled away from the balcony in dread. He ran through the dark halls, tearing his purple robes. "Prepare my chariot now!" he loudly screamed at his guards. The mighty ruler of a kingdom was running away. The wheels of his chariot spun wildly in the thick dirt. He fled to Jerusalem, leaving his broken nation. Back in Shechem, the rebellion's fire could not be stopped. The northern tribes claimed their bold independence. They lifted Jeroboam upon their shoulders in triumph. They crowned him as the first king of the northern realm. From that day forward, the promised land was split into two: Israel in the north and Judah in the south. The empire of David and Solomon was finally dead. It was ruined by a single moment of foolish pride. The border between the two kingdoms became a zone of war. Brothers would soon strike down their very own kin. In Jerusalem, Rehoboam sat on a diminished throne. He ruled over two tribes, swallowed by deep regret. He fortified his southern cities, expecting an attack. His father's wealth could not restore his lost honor. In the north, Jeroboam established his new domain. His sudden rise to power was poisoned by dark fear. He feared his people would return to the southern temple. "If they go to Jerusalem, they will end my life." Driven by paranoia, the king made a fatal mistake. He built two golden calves to replace the unseen God. "Here are your gods, Israel," he declared to his subjects. He set up these false idols in Bethel and Dan. This terrible sin would haunt the northern realm for years. Both kings had led their people into a dark abyss. Rehoboam failed from arrogance, Jeroboam from fear. Their flaws tore apart the spiritual heart of the realm. The temple in Jerusalem lost its unified purpose. Worship became a tool to control the angry masses. The divided city streets echoed with marching soldiers. The golden peace was replaced by the cruel iron sword. Prophets would rise to warn the wicked kings of their doom. Their holy words would simply fall upon truly deaf ears. The divided kingdom story is a timeless warning. True leadership needs humility, not a harsh iron whip. When rulers ignore the pain of their own loyal people, they lose the final right to wear the heavy royal crown. A nation bound by faith was broken by human weakness. The scars of this dark split would ache for many painful years. The dusty wind continues to blow across the ancient ruins. It carries the echoes of a broken, shattered realm. The tragic lessons of Rehoboam still ring very true. Arrogance is a poison, destroying from the inside out. Power without compassion leads to a very tragic end. A leader must serve, or simply watch his empire fall. The clash between the rich elite and the weary working class. This tale is repeated across all human history. Viewing the broken columns and the scattered ancient stones, we recall the heavy cost of those foolish choices. The legacy of David was fractured by a reckless boy, a painful reminder that wisdom is not passed by birth. The northern tribes gained their freedom, but lost their holy soul. Their golden calves became a symbol of their tragic decay. The southern kingdom kept the temple, but lost its mighty strength. They became a target for surrounding pagan empires. Both nations would eventually face the wrath of foreign armies. The Assyrians and Babylonians were waiting in the dark. But those bloody invasions are a story for another time. Today, we reflect on the tragic day the kingdom broke. The choices we make in moments of crisis define our future. Will we heed wise counsel, or let pride destroy us all? The ancient kings have long turned to dust beneath the desert sun. But their mistakes stand as a beacon for modern leaders. Listen closely to the cries of the vulnerable and oppressed, for their collective voice holds the power to change the world. The kingdom of Israel and Judah, forever split in two, a monument to human folly and loss of divine grace. Every ancient stone in Jerusalem whispers the names of the fallen. Every wind in Samaria howls with the pain of division. This is the brutal reality of politics and endless wars. The pursuit of absolute power leaves nothing but ruin. Let us learn from the tragic hubris of King Rehoboam. Let us choose the path of deep humility over the iron whip. The historical records of the Bible hide no human flaws. They show the brutal truth of kings who turned away from God. As the sun sets over the rugged hills of the divided land, the shadows of the past stretch long into our present day. The grand tale of two kingdoms is a mirror reflecting our own souls. It challenges us to examine the pride in our hearts. We must strive to build sturdy bridges where others build thick stone walls. We must heal the divisions before they destroy us. The blood-stained pages of history are written as a guiding light. They urge us to seek wisdom and reject the poison of greed. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the ancient past. The story of humanity is filled with light and deep darkness. In our next episode, we will explore the rise of King Ahab. We will witness the ultimate battle on Mount Carmel's peak. The king gathered his army to crush the massive rebellion. He hoped to bring the lost tribes back under his firm control. A holy prophet named Shemaiah stood in the young king's way. He brought a strict message from the mighty God of their fathers. Do not march against your brothers in the northern lands. This tragic division is what the Lord decreed. Hearing these heavy words, the soldiers dropped their weapons. They marched back to their homes in silent defeat. Rehoboam was finally forced to accept his much smaller realm. He spent his days building strong walls around his lonely cities. He strongly fortified the hills of Judah to protect his lands. The constant fear of an attack kept him wide awake at night. Meanwhile, Jeroboam ruled the north from his glorious new throne. But a dark shadow of doubt clouded his very anxious mind. He feared that his people would return to the holy shrine. If they worshipped in the south, they might quickly betray his rule. To fully secure his power, he forged a completely false religion. He built 2 golden calves to replace the God of heaven. He placed one idol in the northernmost city of Dan. He set the second golden calf in the quiet town of Bethel. He told his people these beasts had saved them from Egypt's chains. It was a tragic lie that poisoned their spiritual souls. Jeroboam made common men priests for his dark and false altars. He completely ignored the sacred laws of the distant past. This terrible sin was a dark stain on his royal name. The northern tribes plunged into deep and lasting spiritual darkness. In the south, King Rehoboam also left the righteous laws. His people worshipped foreign gods upon the high and green hills. God punished Judah by sending the mighty Egyptian troops. King Shishak marched to the city with his heavy chariots. Solomon's glorious golden shields were all stolen away. The king replaced them with cheap shields of heavy bronze. The bronze shields were a tragic symbol of a fallen realm. The pure gold of the past became a very dull imitation. For years, the border saw the tragic loss of brothers. There was endless warfare among the sons of Abraham. Both Rehoboam and Jeroboam ruled with intense hatred. They spent their whole lives fighting over a fractured, broken land. This very sad division severely weakened the nation of Israel. They became easy targets for truly ruthless pagan foes. The United Kingdom was a bright light to the whole world. Now, it was just two warring states lost deep in the shadows. In the south, the priests wept over the torn cloth of their faith. The Holy Covenant seemed to be completely broken. In the north, kings grew more corrupt with each passing year. They built rich palaces, while the poor people slowly starved. David's great legacy was buried under violence and greed. The cost of power was fully paid in precious human lives. For many years, brave prophets would warn the wicked rulers. They spoke of heavy judgment and the urgent need to repent, but the stubborn hearts of kings were much harder than solid rock. They ignored the prophets and continued their very sinful ways. The split of Israel clearly shows the danger of toxic kings. When leaders refuse to listen, the whole nation will bleed. He thought that cruel words would make him appear much stronger. Instead, his whip of iron destroyed the realm that he loved. He truly thought false idols would secure his new royal throne. But his golden calves cursed his royal family line forever. Their choices boldly echo through the ancient halls of time. A stark warning about the destructive nature of pure pride. True greatness is not measured by the weight of a royal crown. It is measured by a leader's willingness to serve his flock. When the mighty ignore the cries of the poor and weak, chaos is near. The dark seeds of bitter anger will truly always grow. We must carefully examine the leaders we choose to follow. Do they uplift us? Or do they seek to crush our fragile souls? History clearly shows that deep compassion builds lasting empires. But arrogance and cruelty will quickly tear them to the dust. As the sun sets over the hills of the divided land, the shadows of the past stretch long into our present day. The grand tale of two kingdoms is a mirror for our souls. It challenges us to examine the deep pride in our hearts. We must strive to build sturdy bridges where others build thick walls. We must heal the bitter divisions before we finally fall. The blood-stained pages of history are a very harsh guide. They urge us to seek wisdom and reject poisonous greed. Look closely at the ancient ruins across the Middle East. They are silent witnesses to the vanity of human kings. The United Kingdom was a brief and shining moment. It was a glimpse of heaven lost to human sin. Thank you for joining us on this dive into the past. The story of humanity is filled with light and dark. We hope this journey has given you a new perspective. The ancient world holds profound secrets to uncover. As we leave the dusty plains of Shechem behind today, let us carry the hard lessons of this ancient tale. Never underestimate the impact of your words. A single, cruel sentence can tear a nation apart. In our next episode, the darkness grows even deeper. We will explore the wicked reign of King Ahab. He and cruel Queen Jezebel will wage war on God. They will hunt down the prophets and cause tragic suffering, but a fiery prophet named Elijah stands in their way. Prepare for a fierce showdown on top of Mount Carmel. His choice destroyed a united kingdom forever. Was he a foolish king or a tyrant, blind with power? If you were in his place, would you heed the wise elders? Share your honest thoughts within the comments right below. Please like this video and share it with all your close friends. Subscribe to our channel for epic history tales.